these sets before, and this time I told myself that I wouldn't do what I've always done, which is just take the piss out of science and scientists. It's not like there's any shortage of piss to be taken, but I think it's time that I hand the baton on to somebody else. And I should do some proper science. So, I was having to think about what I do. I'm a psychiatrist, I'm a neuroscientist, and I thought, let's go a little outside my comfort zone, and I'll talk about statistical bias and confounding. When you start talking about this at a party, you can just see people starting to drift towards you, past you. And I told my wife this, and my wife is a statistician, and she said, "Oh, that's really good, but I just do one of them because there's a lot to cover. I usually do it in 2 lectures." And that shook my confidence a little bit. So instead, what I'm going to discuss with you are how the brain models statistical regularities in the environment. Okay? Now that's the first half of the sentence, which is sort of, what the fuck? And why I occasionally have hallucinations of a cat. That's the second half of the sentence, which is also, what the fuck? So, statistical regularities in the environment are basically things that happen fairly consistently so that you can make predictions with them. Okay? So what I'm going to do is demonstrate this, and I've got a small piece of equipment with me to demonstrate it. And this is it here. Right, I'll just sort of assemble it. Okay, now that's the fully assembled version. By the way, I'm videoing this because in years to come, when I'm asked, so what was the exact point when you knew you had lost it? I'm going to play the video and stop it about 30 seconds before now and say, "No further questions, Your Honor." And so, "You haven't asked any questions yet." "No further questions yet, Your Honor." "Did you think that you were the one who was going to be asking the questions?" "This is sounding a lot like further questions, Your Honor." So, this is one half of the demonstration. It's a cat's toy, just in case it's not clear. The other half of the demonstration was going to be my cat, and I asked her if she would come on stage, and she went, and went back to sleep. So you're going to have to do a little bit of work over here, okay? I've got this bit, but you're going to have to imagine my cat, all right? So I need you to just try very hard to do that. I'll make the job a little easier for you. You can imagine any cat. It doesn't have to be mine. We can work with it. So just imagine any cat. And also because I'm videoing it, maybe at some point I'll put a little inset over here in the video, just to actually have my cat for people who can't imagine cats. Just doing basic continuity checking cat stuff. Alright, so you're going to imagine a cat, and this is basically the game. So, my cat will be somewhere here, and, I'll toss this about, she'll try and catch it, I'll pull it back, she'll try and catch it, I'll pull it back. It's a dance as old as time. Now what my cat is trying to do, her aim is very clear, she wants to catch it. She's not interested in pointing to where it is. So, how's my cat doing this? So we're going to break down the information available here. Now, just to point out the finer bits of this piece of equipment, there are 2 bells here that make a noise. There's this insect-like thing here, which is completely anatomically inaccurate. It has a bell too. Okay? It's not as loud as the bell here, and it's got some features that are quite eye-catching for cats. It's got wings, it's got things that hang off it, and so on. Right? And then, of course, so there's these 2 sources of sound, or auditory information, and then there's obviously the visual information from the insect. Now, if you get these 2 sources of sound, these 2 sources of information, the sound is always the noisier signal. You may not be able to see it, but there are waves of gratitude. was not intended, but it was inescapable. So you just have to deal with it and move on. What I meant by that is that the sound is noisy, it's a much less precise signal if you want to know where the insect is. The vision is a much more precise signal in terms of locating where that insect is. So when you have a competition between a very precise visual signal and a less precise auditory signal, which one wins?
Vision.
It's actually moonlight. Topical. Yeah, but it is vision. But there are two ways this could go. So one is that actually, my cat's brain could actually integrate both those pieces of information and give a lot more weight to the vision because it's a lot more precise, and a lot less weight to the sound. Or the other way that my cat's brain could use it is that she could use the sound as a very broad localizer. Where the sound is, the insect must be somewhere there, but the vision will really pin it down. So when I do that, and she tries to catch it, and it goes out of her sight, she can use the sound to immediately localize where it's going to be, and even before she's turned around and seen it, she's already moving that way. Now, when it comes to humans, adults do the first thing, they integrate, whereas children, at least that's children below the age of 8, seem to sort of do the second thing. I don't know what my cat does, but I think it's not really important here. And clearly, you're having enough to do imagining my cat and then just keeping track of simple puns along the way. But you see, there's another source of information here in the vision, and that's the actual motion, right? Because motion is another kind of statistical regularity. Now, the sound and vision that goes together, it's predictable, and what that means is my cat's brain can use that to make predictions about where the insect is going to be. Because she doesn't want to point to it, she wants to catch it. So when I swing it about like that, she wants to make a prediction about where the insect is going to be to plan her jump. And the motion is very useful because it's got two bits of statistical regularity. One is that this object or this insect should follow the laws of physics. So you can make predictions about it. This is the trajectory, this is how it's going to move. But the second thing is that there's another kind of regularity to biological motion. So if I just drag the toy along in a straight line, she's not terribly interested because there are very few things that have a biological motion in a straight line and right angles. But if I just swish it about, then that's a lot more interesting. Okay. So, those are two different kinds of regularities that she can use, and that's basically what she does to make predictions, because in this time that I've been saying this, if I was playing with her, I would have done this several times over, and she would have made multiple jumps, because these calculations are happening extremely quickly. So, that's probably what she's doing when she's making those instant predictions. But there's something odd that she does. Every time I flick the toy like that, normally I have the mic wire pin behind me, so. Okay, if I flick it like that, what she does is she keeps executing backflips. Right? Now that's weird. I do that, and she executes backflips. And the reason she does that is actually, if I flick that, based on the laws of physics, what you'd expect is that that insect would follow a particular trajectory. And she's executing a jump that will allow her to catch it at one point in that arc. Whether she catches it or not, she still has the problem of, what do I do once I'm here at the peak of my jump? There's no time here for a, oh shit. So what she's doing is executing a backflip, which takes her to the peak, and then turns her around and drops her back on her feet, regardless of whether she manages to catch it or not. What screws the whole thing up is that this thing is on a string. And I pull it out, and therefore I defy the predictions that she's making. And she's doing a great job, I'm just messing it up because of this. Right? Now that's perfectly fine, because in her natural environment, it's very unlikely that she'll find objects that won't follow these statistical regularities. Because generally, in old semi-detached houses, things don't stop obeying the laws of physics. Now, obviously, she didn't evolve to live in old semi-detached houses. But the stuff that she does, it works a treat when it comes to catching birds and things. And that's generally much better for her, because from the fossil record, we know that cats that were very good at catching toys at the end of a string died out a long time ago. Probably from starvation. The point I'm sort of trying to make is what our brain does, and what my cat's brain does, what all our brains do as far as we know, that it makes predictions about the world. And it uses those predictions to guide our behavior, and it uses those predictions to really create our model of the world. What the brain's trying to do is figure out what could possibly have caused that experience that I've got. So when I'm in my house and something moves in the corner of my eye, or there's a shifting of shadows in the periphery of my vision, I see my cat. Because my cat is the most likely cause of that kind of visual experience. My cat isn't always there. So thus every now and then I have a hallucination of a cat. Right? But it's still the best prediction of what causes that kind of movement in my house. Occasionally it catches me unawares when I'm abroad. And I have this disconcerting feeling, what is my cat doing here? It's not a sign. It's not a sign. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is sort of my last stab at scientific immortality. I'm sort of pinning my hopes on this. Right? This is going to be Ziauddin's cat. Not as cool as Schrodinger's, but real. There's a question. Could my cat actually learn this statistical regularity? That there is a possibility that at the arc, at the peak of the arc, the object's just going to move completely into a different trajectory. And the answer is that possibly given enough time, she could, right? It's about, can you teach an old cat new tricks, right? And like most cats of her age, my cat is 7. But given enough time, there's a good chance that she could learn to do this. And actually, when I do that, what she should predict is that she should jump as quickly as possible towards me, so that she either catches the insect very early on in its arc, or she catches it on the rebound when I pull it, right? And that will be great. She'd learn how to catch toys with a stick. But evolutionarily, she could be superbly adapted to actually do that. But in her natural environment, it would be completely useless, right? And there's something very tragic about being evolutionarily adapted to be very good or be perfectly designed to do something, but have absolutely no use for it. Right? It would just be the tragedy of dolphins and cunnilingus all over again.